the period which was most painful and left the most damage was the period of the sanctions, which started in 1991 until 2003. That really ruined the country. It made people destitute. Middle class, educated people were desperate. They were starting to sell their belongings in order to survive. And at that point, enter the United States. The United States came into Iraq. I myself was one of those who lobbied in this country. I was one of the leaders of the Iraqi opposition, not daring to go back to Iraq. I had, and so many others, had to lobby for support against Saddam and his regime. And we lobbied here in the United States and in this city, in the United Nations, against Saddam's regime. Finally, and because I believe of 9/11, American policy changed and intervention became inevitable, and then the Americans came in. But really, the Americans came into Iraq without a complete understanding of the country, without adequate understanding of what they were walking into. Many mistakes were made, wrong decisions, compounded the problems that that Iraq suffered. There was a loss of law and order, a loss that we are still trying to regain. There was looting, and there was a huge opportunity for criminals, terrorists from inside Iraq and outside Iraq coming in, and extremists, ex-Baathists who felt they had lost out. It was a golden opportunity for them to start an insurrection, an uprising, an insurgency that became out of control, and they started actively campaigning through terror to create a civil war between various sects in Iraq. So the country, instead of opening the path for progress and reconstruction, the country descended into chaos. But we, the original Iraqis, I would say, the Iraqis who were of my generation and people who came after me, always believed, and we still believe, in the resilience and capacity of our people to come through and prevail upon extremists, because extremism and intolerance is not part of our culture. Iraq has, throughout the centuries, been a pluralistic society. It is just, if you go to, for example, a place like Libya, it's a totally different social composition. In Iraq, we have always been used to having different neighbors and accepting that as part of life. And we're all friends. But these extreme situations pushed people into pigeonholes, and it became very difficult. Despite this huge onslaught by international terrorism and our own brand of extremism and terrorism, we managed to make considerable progress. We had elections. We had, more recently, local elections. We had a constitution written, initially a transitional constitution, then a permanent constitution. We had referendum on the constitution, and we started building up institutions of democracy that have proved to be themselves resilient and enduring. And in these last elections, which only took place a couple of months ago, it was very clear that the great majority of Iraqis have being won over to democracy, if I use the short term here, i.e., now everybody understands and accepts that if you want to influence politics, if you want to have a voice, you have to go through the ballot box, and there is no use, absolutely no use, in resorting to violence, because that will get you nowhere. That has started to dawn upon even the most extreme elements in Iraq. There are always fringe elements, and those are continuing the fight, and the recent tragedies that we have suffered are examples of that. I believe we will have more of these, but they are getting less and less, and I believe whereas in the first election there were whole areas of the country which were out of bounds, and there were communities who boycotted the election. This was not the case in the more recent elections.